Oh man, I went to a museum and it was awesome. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name's Graham Wilson, and today I'm going to be talking about the National Museum for the U.S. Air Force in my basement. Those planes could not fit in my basement. Yeah, last weekend I went down to Dayton, Ohio, and I thought, hey, I got some stuff to do down there. I'm going to check out the museum right next to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And hey, everybody in the chat, nice to see you here. M. Gatewood, you're new. Well, sort of. That's the first time I noticed you here, but anyways, welcome. Yeah, so I'm going to start off today with a bunch of tips, and then I'll kind of explain them. So number one, don't bring any guns or knives to an Air Force base. Number two, make sure you got lots of battery on your phone. Allow yourself enough time to go through the museum, wear comfortable shoes, and bring your money. Okay, there we go. I just lost half my audience. They know what to do now if they go to the museum. So, anyways, yeah, I went down there and I had some stuff to do on Saturday and then stayed overnight. Then I thought, oh, I'll just pop into the museum. How big could it be? How much time do you need? Whatever. I'll just pop in, rip around, see some airplanes. Big deal. Airplanes are airplanes, right? Wrong. It's like, oh man. But I didn't want to I just messed that one up. Next time I'm going to take more time. So, okay, I'll go through my first tip here. The funny thing, this is America. It was so cool driving through Ohio to get to Dayton. And it's just like, yeah, America. It's like you really do notice, like being a Canadian, there is this little difference between the Americans and the Canadians that it's just kind of a neat culture to pop into. And it's like, I really like how there's American flags all over the place and the stars and stripes. And it's like, people are pretty happy about being American here. So very cool. And yeah, and part of being a good American is God, guns, and glory, and guts, and all that stuff. So, anyways, there's a few signs saying no guns or knives. Like you're driving in, no guns. But the thing is, even it's very American the way that they say no guns. If they say that here in Canada, they would request that you have no firearms on your person. But they say no guns or knives. It was like we call them firearms up here. So, anyways, yeah, and no pocket knives, no nothing. And then you actually go through a little metal detector to go in there into the museum. And stupid me, I was like, okay, for the phone, it was like, all right, cool. I never used my phone for like anything hardly. And it's like, all right, well, I'm going to use the camera on this thing. And all right, we'll go and take a bunch of cool pics of some cool airplanes. And then it's like, I go in there, and it's like, hey, why is my screen dim? What's going on? Like, I'm such a adult when it comes to using phones. It won't turn on. What? And then like I checked it again. I wanted to get a picture of like a B-29 cockpit, and I'm like, oh, it's got 4% battery. I didn't charge it. Oh man, I can't take any pictures. Brutal. So make sure your phone is 100% or your camera or whatever fully charged up. Okay, number three, time. This museum had so much stuff in it that if you're interested in airplanes at all, like me, or even just World War II history, World War II history, Vietnam War, whatever. It's just really interesting stuff and the history of flight. And it's just like I had to, I don't know, I was trying to stop at the places I like, oh, that's pretty cool, I'm going to read about this, and oh, that's pretty cool, I'm going to read about that. Or there's a B-52 landing gear, how does that swivel exactly, so I was trying to go through and like, okay, skip that plane, it's kind of boring, even though none of them are really that boring. But it was like, and I basically ran through the place and it took me 2.5 hours. And it was like, okay, I did not give myself enough time for that. And it's like, it's open from 9 till 5, 7 days a week. And I would say if you're an airplane nut, like a pilot or some aeronautical engineer or something like that. Whatever. If you're really interested in that stuff, allow yourself the whole day, and take a they have a restaurant there. You can have lunch, uh pack a lunch, whatever you got to do. It's actually, I don't know if it's because it's the 100th year anniversary of the Air Force, but it was free parking, free admission. So there you go. And but I mean, there's you can make a donation there, and then however crazy you want to go on souvenirs. Okay, so allow yourself lots of time if you're into it. Yeah, like I said, I didn't even get to see the planes outside, because and then there's like a little memorial garden you can walk through and check out some stuff. So it's like, I did myself a bit of a disservice, but I planned on, I just assumed it'd be like, I wouldn't be that interested, but I was super wrong. And then I did want to drive home late at night and be all tired and stuff. So I kind of ducked out of there early, allow lots of time. And because you're going to be walking around for a whole lot, make sure you got some good shoes. Now they have a good setup there where if you're tired, there's lots of chairs around that you can sit. And even some of the exhibits you can check out, and you're sitting in they had some really cool like full motion simulators and stuff like that. I would have wanted to go into that too. Would have cost a bit of money, but it's like, oh, that looked cool, you know. Oh, that's like a, a stealth fighter or whatever. What did it have? F-35 sim? Anyways, I forget what it was, but you could see like kids in there moving, doing the full motion sim, and it's like, oh, I want to do that. I don't think I have time, and I'm cheap, and I don't want to spend the money. But yeah, so wear some good shoes. I was there for 2.5 hours, and it's a hangar. It's four gigantic hangars. This is what it is, gigantic hangars. And it's all cement because it's a hangar, right? So if you're going to be walking around, you're walking on cement all day, and got to have some good shoes for that. And like I said, bring some cash because some of the exhibits might cost you a little bit of money. You're going to want to get a souvenir. I'm kind of cheap, so I didn't do anything like that. It's like, oh, $20 for an Air Force hat. It's a cool souvenir. It fits. Nah, I can't buy it, you know. So, anyways, maybe I should have. But yeah, so there's that's all the tips there. Okay, and then I made a little note. I mean, there was so much cool stuff to see there, like just unbelievably. Yeah, like I'm at a loss for words how cool it was. But I took a few little notes here, and I did want to mention too that like when you first go in, okay, you go through your metal detector, and no, I didn't. Yeah, that's right. And then they had some younger guys there. I think they were probably from the Civil Air Patrol or something. They look pretty young. They're volunteers. Anyways, a couple of guys had Air Force looking uniforms. They might have been like cadets or something. I don't know what they call them in the States. I think it's Civil Air Patrol. And another guy. So, do you have what do you say? Do you have any guns, knives, or weapons? No, like that's a weird thing to ask, but hey, welcome to the museum. Got any guns? So, anyways, you walk through there and then start off, and he goes through the whole history of flight because Dayton, Ohio, that's where the Wright brothers had their bicycle shop and started up, building airplanes, and then later went on to Kitty Hawk to launch off the first powered one. And so it was really cool when you walk in that you just keep to the right usually, and you go in there, and then it's like, hey, there we go. There's a mock-up of one of the Wright Flyers, and then it's like it had this smell of mineral oil that if you're a pilot and you work in a hangar, it's like this smells like a hangar, it's like you could smell all the oil on the old engines. That they had these really cool old engines for on display. uh Really, yeah, just like, wow, man, they used to put that into an airplane. Like, that used to fly, and these funny little, it almost looks like kind of like steampunk kind of engines and stuff. And well, I mean, it's over 100, well, probably 120 years ago they had these engines. And they almost actually, they did kind of look like steampunk because I guess the gasoline engine, they had the steam engine before they came out with the gas engine. So that would make sense that they get, well, this works for cylinders and pistons and pressure for steam. Let's put a spark in there and some gas. So very cool. And oh, hey, Harold, I'm seeing you in here. Yeah, so it was like just smelled really cool. And then you go through and you see the history, Wright brothers, blah, blah, blah. And then you go through then it kind of goes through the whole history of flight, which is really awesome too. And kind of World War I, and they had some British, what did they have? They had British, German, yeah, they're like basically they had even American, they had kind of like airplanes from both sides, the good guys and the bad guys, whoever you want, however you want to call it. Then it goes through World War I, then it goes through World War II, and they got like everything if you can like think of it, they got it. Like, it's really wild. And another weird thing they have there too, which is I guess it is like Air Force, but so I kind of felt really, like, oh wow, this is cool. Like I walk in, then oh, World War I, World War I, they used to shoot each other kind of, but it was like, good day, young old man. Like it's like, oh, I see. There was all aristocracy that got to fly the planes there. It's like, oh, say hello to my cousin when you land in old Deutschland. Like, oh yeah, yeah. I got rid of all my ammo. Yeah, didn't get anybody. So it was like, yeah, like once I got into like World War II stuff, then it started getting I started feeling like, this is like semi depressing and stuff. Like, because I'm not a big war guy, like I just think these wars are pretty useless. And I kind of have a tough time kind of balancing it out in my head how I can like these airplanes so much, but they were actually weapons that were being used to kill people. And the hippie in me just kind of, I have a hard time rationalizing that. But I rationalize it by saying, okay, we have to remember that war stuff, and those airplanes are cool. And I know that there was a war, and I think we should keep all the wars in the museums and not expand them, if you know what I mean. Okay, remember that, and then that's enough. So that's how I rationalize liking weapons of war, I guess. And oh, hey, Rich. Yeah. So what was I going to talk about there? Yeah. So, and then they had like the actual. Okay, there's like when they dropped the nukes on Japan, it was kind of like it's weird that they would kind of like sort of glorify it, or it's like I don't know, man. Killed a lot of people, man. Jeez. But it was like, it's part of history. And they had the B-29 that flew over there the second time to, that was Hiroshima, Nagasaki, I guess. And then they had like little mock-ups of, was it Fat Man and Little Boy? And it's like, and then you're looking at like, and through the whole thing, they had like, yeah, this is a nuclear missile. Like, this is a nuclear bomb. And like, wow, man, that's kind of messed up. But anyways, yeah, so they had that, and then so it was, I thought that was a little bit weird. And then okay, they went from World War II, and as you go through from the front to the back of the museum, it kind of goes from back in time to nowadays. And so the one really cool there was another really cool one there. It was called I had to write it down, a C124 Globemaster. And I guess it was in Korea. And it was kind of, I Googled some of these planes here and checked them out on Wikipedia. And it was like this great big huge like it was like a triple decker airplane built in like 1949 or something. And you could go up, it had a clamshell doors in the front, and you could had a ramp to load they could load trucks and even tanks there. And then it had also this like cargo bay where it had like a floor that would drop down that you could like drive a Jeep on it, and then you have a winch and bring it up into the airplane. It was like it's got these winches and stuff to bring cargo up, and it was like, wow, this is wild. And then it also, that one kind of appealed to my inner pilot because it was you could see on they could rig it up so that they could have casualties on there with litters, or they could have more troops on the main floor. And then it was well, you saw these numbers that were written just kind of like stencil painted on the side, like all these numbers, and it was decreasing numbers as they get towards the front of the plane. And I was like, why do they have those numbers there? Then I was thinking, aha, when I was that's to calculate the weight and balance for all the cargo. So if you were at station 472, that means you were 472 inches aft from the measuring datum, which I assume would probably be the front of the airplane by the distance. So that my inner pilot was like going, oh, I remember studying for my ATPL exams like this stuff. So that was kind of cool. But probably no one would notice that unless you're a pilot. And then what else do we got there? Oh, they also had the biggest tire that was ever put onto an airplane. And this thing was huge. It was like, I forget the diameter of it, but it was like the wheel, like it was taller than me, so it's probably like an 8-foot wheel or 10-foot wheel, a big, huge rubber tire on it. And that was for the what was it, the B-36 when they first started that. And I didn't know it, but it was like for the B-36 it was kind of built back in the late 40s, I guess. And they said, okay, it's going to weigh this much. It's gigantic airplane, huge wingspan, like 120 feet or something. And then it's like, it's just a huge airplane. They said, well, okay, if the plane's this big, we're going to make everything this big, let's make the wheels this big. So at the time, that was like the biggest tire in the world or something like that. And it was, so this big, huge tire was there. And then that got me thinking of, I guess they were blowing out these tires, and you figured you got like a 12-foot tire or something, and you got all this weight on it and stuff. So I'll get my secondary whiteboard out here. And then they said that, okay, so what they had was you got your wing. Okay, this is getting all piley. And you got the big, okay, there's a great big wheel right there underneath your wing. And it was huge, right? But then if that tire blows out, it's like you're going off into the weeds for sure. So what they did, and now you'll see this all over the place, is that they put four smaller tires on there, and then that would retract up into the wing instead of this great big one, and then they didn't have to worry about them blowing up. So that's pretty cool. And that was in the B-36. So I don't know if that was the first time that was ever done in a big airplane, but now that's the standard design for all the wheels in all the big planes. So that was kind of a neat little piece of history there. Another cool thing was this, I'm just, and this other time at band camp, this other thing was, there was this plane called the X3, and that was, they had an X-15 there too, the one that went Mach 6.7, and that was pretty cool. Man, I could talk I could talk forever about this stuff. But the X3 was a really neat one because apparently they designed it, and I looked this up on Wikipedia, so I'm not like a super expert, but yeah, so it was this it looked like a missile basically, and it had these little dinky little wings on it. And but they were experimenting with making titanium wings for supersonic flight, but they didn't have a big enough engine for this thing. And I read on Wikipedia that when they did try to take off on this thing, on the X3, it was it took 3 miles to get off the ground. They put it out in like a lake bed, and they said, okay, let's go. And then it would take like 3 miles to get up to like 300 miles an hour to take off. Like the wings are so small, you need like a lot of speed to get them up. So yeah, but it was kind of neat that I remember seeing years ago an F-104 starfighter, and I remember that they had a solid titanium wing that was only like probably about that thick, but it was like solid titanium and still pretty small. And they had to drill holes all the way through for control cables and things. And what else did they have? Yeah, anyways, they had to really, but that F-104 titanium wing, it was solid machine. Uh, the R&D before that came on this X3 apparently. And I was looking at the wing. It's like, oh, hey, let's experiment with titanium wings. And I'm looking at it, and they got like Phillips head screws in there. And it's like, I could see, and then you could see the ailerons on it and the flaps. I think it looked like a solid aileron. Like it was like some dinky little thing like this. Yeah, this little thing's gonna go flying like supposedly Mach 2, but it never quite got it. And then so I was looking at it and it's like, oh, you can see the machine marks in there, like as the machinist in me. So like, they used a ball end mill for that. And then because it was titanium, it didn't polish up nice. Like I'm sure it was flat, but it probably changed the color of it. Just my guess. And I'm sure it would have been nice and smooth and fine. And then I looked underneath the wing too. And so this X3 was made in, I don't know, the pilot slash machinist in me really liked this titanium wing. And they had forward slats and flat, they had flaps and slats on the wing. So say you got, it was, yeah, we'll say the wing was like this, super flat, just like that. So this part here had these little slats that would come down. Let's see if we can do that. And then the flaps would come down here. So that would be the front of the wing. And then, but it also had these little, this little setup was kind of like this underneath. And, but maybe that's not the best drawing, but what it was for the control, like push rods and stuff like that to make the flaps and slats go down. And I was like, I've never seen it on a plane. Like it's pretty common to have that on airliners now. And before that was getting made in 1949, I don't think that was ever made before with those little things. So now that's on airliners. And so the X3, it also had, I was reading, it had a ejection seat. Oh, it was the first experimental plane that had air conditioning too. Yeah, very cool. And it had an ejection seat that shot out the bottom. So that was the original F-104 starfighter had that too. And then thinking that if they're going, Mach 2 and they eject, then the tail's going to whack them. So they had them going out the bottom. And they were even talking about that. I have my they were talking about that type of thing in the 1930s actually for ejection seats. And they even had in the 1930s, the engineers were thinking about having a separate pod that would be, if you're going fast, the whole airplane comes apart and you're in this little pod that can come down instead of just a seat. But anyways, yeah. And hey, Shecky, I didn't see you pop in here. Yeah, so that was cool. Oh, two more cool things about the museum. Okay, so there was also they had a bunch of like missiles there that were like, yeah, this is a ICBM and this is the Minuteman silo, like, or whatever, little diagram. And this is a Minuteman rocket. Like this was designed to nuke Moscow. I'm like, well, I guess it is under control of the Air Force. And so there was also one they have one of the Gemini. No, what was it? Apollo. Gemini. Oh, I forget what they had. They had one of the capsules that went up there, went up to the moon. I forget. It was one of the later missions. What was it? Apollo was first. I think was it Gemini went later. Anyways, I forget. But they had this like capsule there, space capsule. Like a lot of the space stuff happened with the Air Force first, and then NASA was invented. But there was a lot of cross pollination there between NASA and the Air Force. So yeah, so part of that was going to space, and then also from Ohio was John Glenn was the astronaut. What was it? The first American astronaut to orbit the Earth, the first person to orbit the Earth. I didn't really get that. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just reading Wrench's. I'm reading Wrench's little comments here. I forget which one was which for the space stuff. But anyways, so John Glenn, one of the cool things there that he took up on his space flight was it was just a little display case that was on loan. It said it was on loan from the Smithsonian, and it's like I thought it was really interesting. There's some 35 millimeter film there for him to take pictures of Earth. And some other little clips and little pieces of string so he can keep things attached in the weightlessness. But it also had his little set of pliers there. And I was like, "Ooh, space pliers! What are those?" You know, it was just like this little set of pliers, and it was kind of interesting. They're kind of shiny, probably chrome plated, and I was like, "Oh, how big is this, a needle nose plier?" So it was like kind of halfway between a needle nose plier and a regular wider set of pliers there. And yeah, it might have been nickel plated there, Shecky. I'm not sure. It was shiny. And but the cool thing was it was like in true machinist fashion, like, okay, if you get your pliers, what do we got here? Do we got this on here? Oh, I usually put, oh no, that one came after. Where's a nice old set of pliers? Yeah, so here we go. So when I was working in the trade, I always put my initials on the tools. So we got that there. Where are we here? See if you can see that. There we go. GW Graham Wilson. So those are my vice grips. So I thought that was kind of cool that he had a little piece of tape on his pliers and it said Glenn. So it was like, hey, you know, he was an engineer, so you can kind of see that would be, I don't know, kind of OCD. No, those are my lucky pliers to go to space. But yeah, it was kind of cool. And then you know, because whenever I worked in a shop, I get my pliers, and any new tool you put your initials on, and then I can tell in my toolbox which ones I got after I left the trade. No initials on them. But anyways, here we go. Straightjaw vice grips. Oh, is that what they're called? Oh wait, Straightjaw. Yeah, that's what these are. But and they actually are vice grips. See, because that's a trade name, is a vice grip. If you can see that right there, vice grip. And so I can call these vice grips, but if they're from Harbor Freight, they're called locking pliers. Anyways, okay, what else we got here? Oh, and then the last thing here was talking about the first chimpanzee that went up into outer space. And everyone knows, like, oh yeah, they sent a monkey up there, but it was actually a chimpanzee. And it was kind of cool. They had they actually made like a little flight jacket for the like a cool leather flight jacket for the monkey. For the his name was Ham, by the way. What was it? Ham the Astro Monkey or something? Astro Chimp. Oh, that was it. Ham the Astro Chimp. And so yeah, and then it said that the apparently the Air Force base where Ham was hanging out, they it was the base commander told the people in charge of like repairing parachutes and stuff, like, okay, make the chimp a leather jacket. So it's like this leather jacket, and they put it with extra long arms for the chimp. So that was kind of cool. And another thing I didn't know, it was that they trained the chimp. This is what I read. So and they had this little thing. They'd stick them in this little, I don't know, I forget what they call it. It was like a cradle or couch, or I don't know what it was called. But they trained the chimp to if something lit up, like to move a lever or press a button and stuff, so that they wanted to see how if we were up in outer space and we're weightless, how do we operate? Can we press buttons? Can we move levers and stuff like that? And so it's like, pretty cool. Yeah, it had these little lights in there where the monkey was getting trained. So, okay, light goes on, press the button, get a banana. I don't know. But it was like, yeah, that's well. Good job, man. So, yeah, and I could just go on and talk about that stuff, but I'm not going to. So there we go. Let's do. All right, if you made it this far and you want to go to the United States Air Force Museum, don't bring your guns. Don't be like me. Make sure your phone's you can take lots of pictures and your phone's all charged up. Allow lots of time if you're like all day, man. There's a lot to see there. If you really want to read every little thing, that's a full day. Wear comfortable shoes. You're walking in a hangar on cement all day, and bring your own money. And there we go. And there's so much chat here. I'll take a quick look and see if there's any questions, but I don't know. I have to go back through. I guess when there's a lot of people in here chatting, I'm just going to take a quick little scan to see if I see a question mark. And then if I see a question mark, what do we got here? Oh, the question marks are everybody talking to each other, but that's cool. All right. Yeah, wow. This is like probably one of the best chats ever. It's like I'm glad you guys showed up and you're hanging out. Okay, so no official. Oh yeah, one more cool thing. one more cool thing. Oh, and then there was this. They also had like a bunch of Air Force Ones there. So the very first Air Force One was it was a military version of a DC-6. Was that Harry Truman, I guess? He had the first kind of Air Force One, and you can go through it. That one, they had a Constellation for Roosevelt, I think, and then they had a what is it, 707 for Kennedy right before he got shot. But yeah, that old one, the first one, it was like that was cool, DC-6, because that was made late 40s, so they didn't quite have radio navigation yet, and they used just regular. Here's your map, draw a line, go there. But that was neat walking in there because it was like they had like a little bubble on top, a clear bubble, so that they could use a sextant for navigation and at night. So there's the North Star. Okay, we're on our way. And then the other weird thing was like, okay, the president of the United States is going to go back to his office in the back, right near the back. And every president gets their own bathroom too. I noticed that. And it's usually at the back of the plane. So yeah, on the way there, I'm looking at these big aluminum things. You're walking, it's pretty tight. You're walking through there. I'm like, what are these? They look like, I think they got like, it was like fuel tanks that are like right there. You walk right by them. I'm like, that's a fuel tank, man. It looks like one to me. Then I was reading on the internet. It's like, yeah, they put extra fuel tanks in there for extended range so it can go anywhere in the United States. And it's like, I'm walking right by, like, I'm the president. I'm walking by like thousands of gallons of gas, like kaboom. But anyways, it was weird. And it was also neat to see the community, like they all have these little phones they can pick up and rotary dials on a jet. And what else do they have there? Ashtrays all over the place. So, and yeah, pretty cool. And but another thing too is the seatbelts, even for on the first Air Force One. Is like those look like regular seatbelts you'd see in a jet nowadays as a passenger. Seatbelt technology hasn't come that far, I guess. Okay, that is about it. All right. And cool. Thanks for letting me blab. Yeah, so today is Monday. So I'll be back on Wednesday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. And we'll just kind of shut her down here. So Thanks for coming in the chat today, guys, and thank you for watching. Bye.